Welcome to the Men's Weekly Podcast, where we explore faith, brotherhood, and godly leadership. Join us as we dive into Scripture, tackle real-life challenges, and uncover what it means to become the example in every aspect of life. Whether you're a husband, father, or leader, this is your place for encouragement and growth. Let's get started. All right, my brother, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Joshua, here. And last week, we really dove deep into pride, didn't we? Man, did that just stick the finger right in my own eye, digging all these things up, understanding that I've let this silent killer for so long steal from me. If you have not caught that episode, brother, go back and listen to episode 10, and let's talk about killing pride before it kills you. This week, we're talking about a whole other silent saboteur, and that is emotional immaturity. My brother, this is something so deep. And again, if you haven't dealt with pride or at least acknowledged its existence, and if you haven't come to the truth and the realization of your journey that you are a liar, my brother, this is going to be a very difficult episode for you indeed. As always, I encourage you to go back to the beginning and follow along this journey with us as we explore what it means to be a man of God, particularly in this day and age here on the Men's Weekly Podcast. So let's dive into episode 11 here. Here's my quick question to you, brother. Are your emotions leading you? Or do you lead your emotions? Again, this is going to be a big stick. Everyone's got to examine themselves. This isn't for me to come and point it out in your life, brother, but understand something. Real strength isn't stuffing your emotions or allowing them to explode. Real strength is learning to master them with wisdom, grace, and ultimately self-control. You see, we talk about this discipline. And we're going to unpack it right here. You know, I do this in the beginning with every one of these episodes. We're going to talk about some keys. Why is it that emotional discipline even matters in the first place? Let's look first into the key of Proverbs 16, verse 32. It says here, simply put, better a patient man than a warrior, one with self-control than one who takes a city. And this is so deep. I've pondered this for the last 25 years of my journey, brother. And let me tell you something. If you'll get honest with yourself, we all have room to improve upon this word patience. We all have room to improve on this concept of self-control. And here in the proverb, the key, the wisdom to extract is simply patience and self-control. Patience and self-control. These are two concepts that are absolutely impossible when we're operating in emotional immaturity, when we have zero discipline in our emotions. I don't know about you. This is so much easier to say than do. Like I said, it's been 25 years for me. Maybe you're experiencing something right now where you know you've lost patience. You know you had no self-control in that area. Welcome to the journey, brother. I'm dealing with them every day myself as well. Let's look at the next key here. Galatians chapter 5, verse 22 through 23. It says here, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, and temperance. And against such there is no law. Now that word temperance there at the end, that's that old King James. I'm just going to bring it up to modern day and age and call it self-control. See how important that is? When we self-controlling, brother, when there is this innate ability to be in control, these emotions are hitting a gate. And that gate isn't something that's designed to hide them. It's designed to expose them and bring us to a place where we can have domination or dominion over those emotions. Like I said, as we began this journey, all of what we are going to explore requires a radical level of truth. So consider that in your journey. Are you operating in this fruit of the Spirit? Once again, it's easy to read them out, and we're not going to go through it and belabor this, but this is a key. And over the last 25 years, I have re-examined this thousands of times. So if you're one of those, brother, you're sitting there, well, I read that before. Oh, yeah, I got that. Let me encourage you. You have room to grow. And let me, in fact, implore you and admonish you, you have not yet finished growing. That's the beauty of this journey. Let's look at our final key here. James 1:19 and 20. It says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. All right, brother, we just hit the nail on the head, didn't we? Got all up in that back pocket. You ever become angry quickly? This is why emotional discipline matters. See, any kind of instability inside of our emotional state, it just sabotages everything. Our leadership, how we show up, our family life, how we show up, how we react, even our very personal peace, to the point where we can't even sit down and be still anymore. This has happened so many times in my journey. Of course, I can look back in hindsight and reflect on this. I've been really introspective on this the last couple of years, and I encourage you, like, the more you can get honest and look in the fruit of your journey, you'll see these things. But the key here is you got to want to know, right? Now, emotional suppression, this isn't the solution. I did this for so long, sedating, pushing down the emotion, lying about which emotion it was that I was experiencing, literally just telling nobody about it until what would happen? Boom, an explosion would take place. When we suppress, brother, when you suppress your emotions, they will come out. There is no getting around it. At some point, a trigger event will take place and an explosion will occur. You've probably, like me, experienced this a bunch of times, probably rationalized it like I did, threw it off under the rug somewhere, never really acknowledged it until the day comes where Christ's knocking at the door. Do you open up that door? See, the Spirit-led control, self-control by His Spirit, that is the solution. And that's so much easier said than done. But I can tell you, it's certainly not suppressing the emotions. There is an acknowledgement of the truth, and the power that comes to us in that acknowledgement is undeniable. You see, God's called men like you and I to be rooted, firmly planted, not reactive. We're creative. We're to be planted and rooted to go forth and bring forth fruit, the fruit of His kingdom, mind you, not just simply reactive to all the things in this world. So what's your emotion, brother? What is the one that you're struggling the most to control? Maybe you're like me, it's anger, frustration, anxiety, maybe insecurity, and fear. Remember when we talked about fear? Absolute killer, isn't it? You know, we talked last week with pride, and pride's the one that will sit here and just start divvying these out. Boom, boom, boom. The moment that we acknowledge pride, all of these emotions are going to come up. You're going to have the opportunity to become honest. And you know what? Unashamed. Because you have God-given emotions, my brother. There is no shame in them. The shame is in the lying, in hiding them. So here's a couple signs. You might be being led by emotion and not wisdom. And of course, these are coming from my journey, so I'm chuckling a little bit because I tell you, it's the way to go to expose yourself. And here we go on the roller coaster about to expose everything. How about when you snap in frustration without thinking? I can't tell you how many times in my previous marriage, in my life, in my jobs, in my family, with my children, I have snapped, literally, bam. Oh, I'm just being frustrated. Oh, I'm just tired of that. I'm done with it. That's the end of that. Enough of this. And of course, it would escalate to F you and, piss off and whatnot, right? It depends on what combination of emotions that you're dealing with. But the trigger an element comes and then you react and you snap without thinking. It is carnal in nature, nothing, it's just automatic. And this has happened so many times to me. I bet you in the last year, you can probably get a handful of these examples. Now, it may not have lasted a long time. It might not have had what you would call some immediate impact. But the key is in, again, self-examination, looking at where have you snapped, my brother, and then beginning to pull apart. What is the trigger and why am I triggered? In the evaluation of that, you'll see where God can enter in and begin to develop your self-control. Are you going to be perfect? Nope. Let's look about this one. I've sat here and ghosted people. Literally, I get overwhelmed and it's like I'm out. I'm checked out completely. I did this with my wife, my queen, did this with my children, did this with my teams. I've done this with bosses. I've done this with in congregations and fellowships. Just simply checking out. Now, we talk about this on the journey when you go into the pit and you sit here in this pit or this valley of shadow of death, however you want to look at it, and you're all up in your pain and you're all up in your feels, just like I've been. And what do you want to do? I've always wanted to isolate. You see that word right there? That's when people get ghosted. So have you done this? This could be a sign that you're operating by your emotions and not by wisdom. How about making big decisions? And I can't tell you how many pivots in my life that I have made these big decisions, but I was all emotionally charged and triggered making the decision. Something pissed me off, and I said, I'm going the other way. Right? You been there? Come on, brother. How many of these decisions are you making that are based in emotion and trigger events than by wisdom? And this is a challenge for us. You see why this is one of those subcutaneous hidden enemies that we have? Yeah, we've been taught all kinds of things contrary to we must be in control and acknowledging all of our emotions. How about anger and silence instead of just being vulnerable? It's funny. As I began this journey 2.5 years ago, almost now, of actually exposing where I'm at and telling people the truth of, wow, I'm really dealing with this. This thing's pissing me off. I said I would do this and I didn't do it. And I'm telling the truth and acknowledging where I'm at, sharing my shortcomings. Do you know how many people judge me over that actually matter? Zero. But I had in my mind this fear, right? And so before, what I would do is just simply be all angry, be all up in that anger field, because everything translated to anger for me. Or I would give them the silent treatment, right? Or I would just sit there in the fellowship and just cross my arms and fold my legs and, I'm not sharing shit. And then I'd sit there not sharing. Guess what I'd start doing? Judging everyone else, right? So it's wild. Do you do any of these things, brother? Can you examine that in your life and be honest? Because one of the things that I found that worked really well once I acknowledge these is beginning to pause before reacting. And I've taught this to my children. I love it. It's absolutely wonderful. I'm not perfect at it by any stretch, but this is a real strategy, brother, for overcoming this trigger event that causes all the emotions to explode, that causes us to lose out on the self-control and patience that God's trying to develop inside of us. Just pause. We'll take a moment here right now. Close your eyes. We'll get somewhere. If you're driving, listening to this podcast, please don't do that. But stop, slow down, pause this. Close your eyes. Breathe in through your nose, deep into your belly. Deep, deep, deep. Go in. Hold it. And let it out. 5 seconds, brother. 5 seconds will change your entire life. How you see and how you respond will change radically. I assure you. And if you're already implementing this, or if you're going to be implementing this now after hearing this podcast, please be sure to come drop a comment, share with the brothers, be vulnerable, explain to them just how powerful taking a moment, maybe 5 seconds before reacting, you know it's coming, it's right there. Close your eyes, breathe in deep, hold it for a moment, and let it out. You see, because the enemy wants you to take immediate action, but the Father's trying to develop inside of you patience and self-discipline. Once I began to really understand this, especially as a dad now, having children, young children in particular, they range from 23 down, but they are the two young ones at home still. And I'm encouraging them in this by, guess what? Doing it. Doing it. Give it a shot, my brother. The other one that's coming up big for me was this is acknowledging the truth, isn't it? Name the emotion. Name the damn thing. Sometimes I'd get in there and I was embarrassed. I'd get in the discipline of journaling and I'm sitting here, what's this trigger event? Why was I so damn pissed off about that? And the fact was I was just pure, flat out embarrassed. Sometimes it was ashamed. Oof. Sometimes it was absolutely fearful. Sometimes it was inadequate. It's all over the map. But the fact of the matter is, until I could put the label on it, it was leading me around. The moment I started naming them, I began to have power over them. Now, of course, this wasn't some I'm not affected by emotions. Bullshit. I'm still affected by them. I'm still knocking around in this flesh just like you, brother. This is not some kind of condemnation thing that we're after here. This is a journey we are on. And naming the emotions is very pivotal because it is acknowledging the truth of where you are at, what you are dealing with, not just the facts, but also the feelings. And of course, we have the fruit of the Spirit in practice. We talk about daily discipline. So what does that mean? Well, you get to examining it, brother. Take a look day by day, because you are competing against you. You're not competing against me. We all run in a race. The beauty is you are comparing yourself, hopefully, to yesterday you. Where are you at? Are you practicing the fruit? If it's gentleness, maybe it's just one particular thing. You're going to pivot from how you responded yesterday to how you're going to respond today. Then we have emotional vocabulary and expression. Now, I got to say, being able to experience the discipline of journaling, this came out in a big, big way. Because, brother, you can self-examine, but then there's also the discipline of fellowship where we begin to come together and expose where we are at with our brothers. And that's what we have every week at our Men's Weekly Fellowship. But you don't know that vocabulary. You don't know how to express it without actually doing it. It's like a child getting up to walk for the first time. Do they go full blown? Absolutely not. They try to stand up, wibble wobble, and down they go, because they need to develop the vocabulary, muscularly speaking, the muscle memory to do it, how to begin to speak, right? And it's the same for us because we've been taught for so long to suppress it. We've probably not, if you're anything like me, I didn't have any examples of any kind of true emotional control at all. I didn't know by my examples that I was given as a child how to healthfully express my emotions. So it required these disciplines. It required digging deep. But again, I wanted to know, do you? Do you want to walk in emotional discipline and power? Well, good. Let's talk about how you can take something from this. Just like every week, we want to bring you to a place of taking action. You've got fired up. There's something you're already on fire about right now. So good. Start a little triggers journal. Maybe you're journaling already and you can just highlight where the triggers happened. Man, this thing happened. This is the situation. And here's the feeling. And man, I was pissed, or I was angry, or I was frustrated, or whatever it is, disappointed. Whatever those triggers are, start tracking it. Because once you begin to track the spikes and you actually analyze them, pray through them, okay, by faith, start practicing the disciplines, you're going to understand in hindsight, you've just been given a roadmap on how to overcome these triggers, these emotions, how to get them in check, and you're going to be of an effect for God's kingdom on this earth because you're going to be able to pay that forward, brother. You see how this all works together? You're going to have to get something going on here. So if you're not journaling, that's definitely my number one recommendation. Number two is going to be to memorize some scripture. Just start with this Proverbs 16:32. You could start with any of these three keys, whatever works for you, but 16:32 is great because I was doing this on a daily. You see, I thought strong meant control, meant domination, meant overlord. I'm the head. You will respect me. This is the way. You know what I begin to find? The more I let this word on the inside of me, not just like, oh, I read that. Oh, I heard that. No, like memorize it, quote it, speak it, declare it over myself and over my family. It began to change my whole definition of some of my words and some of my understandings from the bad examples that I had growing up. You see, brothers, we have got to become renewed in our minds. That's why you're listening to this podcast. There's something the Father's got prepared for you here. Maybe memorize the scriptures and declare it. Let it reshape how you think. This is the point of repentance anyway. Think differently. All right. Number three is creating a plan to pause. You know, I've heard sometimes people go, I'm going to go pinch myself, or I'm going to go bite my tongue, bite my cheek. I've heard them all. Whatever that is for you, you're probably doing that reactionally, right? It's just happening. But if you actually have a plan, and that's why I indicated to you what I use, and that worked amazing, and what I teach my children, and what is producing fruit even in their lives, is simply close my eyes, deep breath in through the nose, hold it for a moment, and let it out. See, I have a plan. Okay, I'm overwhelmed. Something's coming up. I know what to do. Now, do I do it all the time perfectly? No. Are you going to do it all the time perfectly? Absolutely not. But get started. That's why we give you these tasks, these actions that you can take away from this podcast. And we look forward to hearing how the implementation has gone for you, my brother. Just compare yourself against you and measure your improvements. So, real strength, again, it doesn't come down to power, it's control, but not the control of the world. It's a self control. It's mastering your emotions so you lead your family, your faith, and your future with wisdom, not emotions. So, this week, brother, when emotions come up, choose to pause, pray, respond rather than reacting. Now, next week, when we dig in, oh my gosh, we're going to get into one that is just absolutely going to trigger the fuck out of everybody, and that's lust and purity. Woohoo! Don't want to miss this one, brother. I'm telling you, we start getting into the nuts and bolts, and you'll see as we progress along this journey, we're going to get down to the brass tacks of everything we deal with as men. We're going to talk about lust. Yep. We're going to talk about purity. We're going to be talking about what it means to win the battles when nobody's looking. So, brother, if you struggle with this right now, If you know a brother struggling with this right now, you do not want to miss episode 12. All right. I look forward to seeing you there. For now, it's your brother, Joshua, saying shalom. Thanks for listening to the Men's Weekly Podcast. If this episode inspired you, share it with a brother and take the next step in your journey by joining our 52-week study. Visit mensweekly.us to connect with the brotherhood and start becoming the man God has called you to be. Remember, transformation happens one step at a time. So stay faithful, stay humble, and keep moving forward. See you next week.